Faisal, in our last round, you talked about liberation, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the difference between liberation and salvation.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is really a nice subject to touch on, you know. I mean, liberation and salvation are not the same. And they intertwine, they weave into each other. But for the sake of differentiation and labeling and understanding, let's say that there are two streams.
Okay.
Two lineages, you know. The lineage that focuses on liberation and the lineage or the stream that focuses on salvation. From what I see so far, the Buddhist lineage emphasizes the path of liberation. And so much emphasis on what the path of liberation could lead to, and so much of the teaching about how to navigate it to reach liberation. And by liberation, I mean recognizing the enlightened nature of who we are and being liberated from the imprisonment or the matrix of this conceptual mind we live in. The mind and its emotions and its this realm that we live in. And then there is the lineage that has to do with not liberation, you know, it's more about salvation. And that is seen so much in the lineage of the prophets. The path of liberation, you see it in the lineage of the Buddhists. They all talk about enlightenment and liberation from illusion and from suffering and all of those things. While so much the lineage of the prophets doesn't talk about that, you know. They talk about, yes, you go to heaven and you go, you know, to paradise. So there are some rewards, but so much the teachings about shaping up, about getting instruction, what to do or not to do, and about this and about that. And if you don't do this, this happened to you. And if you do that, this happened to you. It's all about how not to go to hell and how to go to paradise. So it's more about saving the soul from damnation, you know, not so much about being in oneness with God and in God and all of this thing. That's like so far removed, you know, even though it is there, you know. But it is instruction for the individuals on how to navigate in daily life and inner and all of those things. So much emphasis on that. While the path of liberation, so much emphasis on how to disengage from the mind totally, including the self. You know, there is no mention about or emphasis on the self, like, you know, yourself is an illusion and you let go of the self, and this realm is illusion, and there are hells, but they are all non-real, and you go to the real, which is liberation. Liberation to me is necessity, but not sufficient. It's needed. It's like we are in a dream, living our story, living never ending, you know, our past and conditioning and all of this thing. And we don't have a glimpse into what is beyond this story, what is beyond all of these things. And so if we can be free from that, liberate from the mind and the conceptual construct of the mind and all of that, we discover the true nature of mind, which is openness, freshness, pure potentiality to create millions of realms, you know. So liberation is to come out from all those matrices, you know, this story or that story, this domain or that domain, this religion or that, to be free from it all, and like waking up in the morning from series of dreams that night. And you wake up, you say, oh, wow, I was dreaming all this time. And the dream seems to be real. And I could have been died in those dreams. And I might have, you know, all of it. So this is good to come out of the hypnosis of the mind. Because now the true nature of the mind has been fabricated, has been used by humanity to create a huge field, samsaric field, a field of conditioning, field of illusions, to the point that we don't even see each other as humans. It's like, the black is not a black, the Chinese is not Chinese, they are not a human. They are this and they are that. And, come on, it's the same human. But our conditioning, our beliefs, the American is not a human and the Kuwaiti is not a human, or who is a human, I don't know. We lost what it is to be human. We lost the basic of what we are, the basic of our nature, the basic of our humanness. So to come out of all these stories and conditioning and prejudices and to wake up to the freshness and lightness, this is liberation. The soul is liberated from the dungeon or the cave it has been living in, the jail it has been living in, And once I saw a document about, they put 3 or 4 monkeys in different cages, and they put them in an open field for 2 or 3 months. And they feed them, in the cage. Then after 3-4 months, they open the cage, and one monkey rushed back to the end of the cage, terrified because it was just open. And another monkey was scratching its head like doesn't understand openness. And another monkey came to the end and stuck its head and its hand out, felt overwhelmed, and went back to the cage. After a week, little by little, they felt familiar. They step out of the cage, then rush to the jungle and all of those things. Liberation is like opening the cage, and coming out free. Now that it needs something more than just liberation. We as human beings are souls, and these souls are beings that can come and go, reincarnate. If you don't believe it, fine, but there is also cause and effect. If one hits their head against a wall, they're going to get a headache, so they need to not to do that. I remember my daughter, she would always want to go and touch the fire in the fireplace, and I say don't. And one day I wasn't there, she touched it. The only way she could learn was to touch it. So sometimes we as souls are immature. We need instruction on how to navigate. The monkeys know how to be monkeys. We don't know how to be humans. We are so messed up, we don't know how to be humans, So till we become human, sometimes we need instructions in how to walk the walk. Even if I don't understand it, I need instruction of do and don't. Thou shalt not kill. Whoever lives by the sword shall die by the sword. These instructions are not for liberation. It's not to free me from the story of my mind. It's instruction for my soul not to do actions that can cause more trouble, more confusion, more karma on my soul. Then I cannot be liberated. So the path of salvation is instruction, is guidance that can help the soul not only liberate, but also mature. I've seen many liberated, enlightened gurus and souls fall through one hell after another. Sogyal Rinpoche was put in jail, Trungpa, God knows the traces he left, you name it. Many of them I could name, many of them continue. The story continue. Enlightenment doesn't do it. Enlightenment sets you free, but you need instruction. One thing that comes sometimes with enlightenment is the freedom and the feeling that whatever mistake I do, I can undo, and I'm free to do anything. And gurus violated, you've seen it, the sex things and the violation of so much. So the liberation need to be coupled with salvation, with instruction for the soul not to just be free. What we call freedom and liberation is is a teenage definition of liberation. Like, leave me alone, I want to do whatever I want to do. Real maturity of maturation and wisdom and responsibility and freedom is carrying the responsibility. Mm-hmm. Feeling responsible enough to say, this is a kingdom I live in. To open up to see the awakening, can you see that there is a kingdom we live in? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's right here. I am responsible for the trees, for the air, for the water, for the insect, for the animals, am I not my brother keeper? My brother, all of these. These are elements that make the soul mature. Not just, I'm free, I can do whatever I want to, and I never lived enough my teenage, so now I live my teenage. I have all my hair around and I'd be happy. You know, it is more deep sense of, is there something more precious than liberation? Yes, there is a kingdom at hand. And this kingdom, we inherited it, and we are in it, and it's a glorious kingdom. This earth is the rainbow body of the universe, of existence. Mm-hmm. It's not what we think. You know, every cell in this body that seems to be insignificant, 70, 80, 90 years old and die, every cell in it has 50,000 operations happening in a second. Mm. No computer can calculate 10 billion cells running at the same time, doing all of this harmony. We are living in the most magical, powerful kingdom, created, let's say, by God or by us. We created it, we forgot, you know, and we use this field of mind to create this magical kingdom. And we as souls need to walk the walk. So the path of salvation, you know, is more like, what is the walk that is really kosher, that's really right, you know? I remember after 10 years of liberation, something in me felt it's not enough, because I still come out and I still suffer, and still there is questioning in me. And I thought it was my ego, you know, and every day I said, oh, I didn't kill my ego, I didn't have my ego die, I didn't do this and do, till after 10 years of enlightenment, you know, continual 10 years of enlightenment, and including in that years, the diamond approach unfolded, and, you know, all of those teachings and discoveries came from it. I wasn't resolved. I had to leave the diamond approach. I had to leave Ridwan and all of that and walk my walk alone, because I felt like liberation hasn't done it for me. Enlightenment hasn't done it for me. You know, I feel I failed enlightenment, you know, and but something in me says, no, you continue, follow. You know, I couldn't follow the guidance unless I left the school. So I left the school and followed the guidance. And there I could feel that my soul can go to enlightenment, can be in this field, you know, or I can go to my issues and I can go to my samsara, nirvana or samsara. But both of them seem to be of no interest to me. You know, like, okay, I can create never-ending essential state. I can create trouble for me to no end. You know, really, you know, I can buy goats forever. So then in that I said, okay, I drop both. I drop nirvana and samsara. Where do I land? I landed in that dark night of no soul. I'm just there in the darkness, in an abyss. And I feel I could move in any direction I will to move. I wish to move. I can go to spiritual high and that kind of life, or I can go to issues, or I can mediate and, you know, do a little of this and a little of this. But something in me says, no, you have to stay there. I stayed there for a year. And in there, deep longing came that I am not afraid to go to hell. I'm not afraid to go I'm not tempted to go to paradise. I'm not tempted in nirvana. I'm not fearing samsara. But something is missing in me. And when I reach that level, deep longing in my soul, ancient longing in my soul, came for something more than both of them. Some kind of guidance, some kind of instruction, like, who am I? What am I? What's it about? You know, this thing. And that's when I felt the touch of grace, divine intervention. And that's when I felt the salvation. I felt, oh, to reach this emanation, to reach this connection, and it was divine love, you know. Felt, oh, that's what my soul needed, that I am loved and I am guided and instructed how to walk the walk. And for that love and for that wisdom, I am willing to go in the cage again, like that monkey. If that's what it means, that's what it takes, I do it. Because there is preciousness to all of this kingdom, not just liberation, not knowing the nature of mind and the absolute and openness. That's beautiful, you know. But to know that there is a kingdom and my soul can evolve and mature and can reach nobility of character and evolution, you know, to walk the walk of the Christ, to walk the walk of the high beings or the Lord divine, to walk that walk, you know.
Good Safa.
Yeah, and that felt like that's the salvation, the path of salvation. The path of salvation is educating and guiding my soul in the right way, not just to be liberated, not to be liberated a millionaire and I can spend whatever and I can every night party and do all of those things, but it is more about, can I walk a walk that's in grace and alignment with all that there is? And what is here is gorgeous, is beyond anything we can really imagine, a kingdom beyond anything we can really imagine, you know. And it is not the mess that humanity is making. It's glory upon glory, what is here. Then I felt salvation and liberation walk hand in hand, you know. My soul need to have the instruction to walk the walk, and my mind need to be free from the prejudice and limitation in order to illuminate and mature. It felt this is the balance, liberation and salvation. You know, both of them talk about it. The Buddhists talk about salvation and what to do. Don't do these things. And lineages of the Prophet talk about God and infinite and being. But the emphasis is just a matter of emphasis. You know? And one is for the point of light. The path of salvation is for the soul. And path of liberation is for the mind. And that's where sometimes the students get confused, because they are giving instruction to undo the mind, to let go of everything,
right.
You know? And then in the path of salvation, they are given the opposite, you know, sit and don't do and don't, you know, say. So it feels like you ask me to be free and you put chains around my hand. How does that happen? You know? The salvation is for the soul to mature, to evolve, to cultivate higher and higher qualities of love, generosity, all of this. Liberation is to drop all the prejudice and limitation. You know? So one for mind and one for soul.
So if someone is fortunate enough to have a realization of, let's say, no self nature, and so that's the mind, right?
Yes.
Being able to empty the mind. And so what's happening with the soul when the mind is able to be in no self nature? Wouldn't teachers say that the soul sort of automatically becomes luminosity and clarity and compassion, right? That those things automatically happen.
Yeah, you would assume so.
Yes, but it doesn't, obviously.
Really, that's what I thought. Once you reach it, all of those things. From what is obvious, it doesn't happen like that. You know, the soul sometimes matures and cultivate. Sometimes the soul doesn't. It can reach Rikpa, it can reach this, you know, but the soul itself is like a teenager. It hasn't matured enough. So it wants the goodies. Now that I am a guru or a teacher, I can do this and I can do that. And some of those teachers or gurus didn't complete their journey, you know, and they get grandiose and they get, you know, whatever. Then their soul doesn't reach the maturation processes that it also needs to reach, you know. And you see in it a lot. So could the soul still be in the enlightened field and still immature and create karma? You bet.
Yeah.
It really can. And it really does, you know.
So your process was actually going sort of into the despair of being in a realized state, not being enough.
Yes. Yes. For me to see that, I still, my ego comes up like, where is, you know, either I said, no, I'll just go to awareness and watch it, which I did for years. The ego comes and the ego goes, and the ego comes and the ego goes, all of those. Then came time, said, what if I am this? This is, call it ego. I am the ego. I am not Buddha nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because Buddha nature cannot erase me. Mm-hmm. I am mightier, Mighty Mouse is mightier than Buddha nature. Mm-hmm. I am still in Buddha nature. I'm still here, you know. And so that was the fall, that I really had to let go of it all and become this, whatever, ego or soul in the dark night of no soul, being there in the abyss and staying with it beyond fear and temptation, and for a touch of grace that I did not count upon. I did not even
by
know.
Yourself?
By myself, yeah. Okay. By myself, you know. Just one night, 3 nights, 3 days and night, you know, I remember after a year in the darkness, you know, and at the same time I was teaching and generating essences and doing all of those things. And I felt like I am fake, you know. I am a failure. How am I going to teach them to succeed? And they were succeeding. They were getting what they need, but I didn't, you know. And the being said, no, you stay with it, because I was going to stop teaching, stop working. But the being said, stay with it. And I was all alone. You know, I left the school. I had no one. I was on my own alone. And after a year, then I remember around the Christmas, 87, you know, and Christmas coming, and people think of Christmas and the Christ and, you know, God and all of those things, you know, and I said, okay, what is missing? Maybe, you know, maybe what's missing somehow, something awakened, forgotten in my soul. Maybe there is God. Maybe God is not the absolute. It's not the grand being. It's not the great being. That's the being. That's the mind, you know, but maybe there is God. And that idea just broke a deep cage in my heart, broke open, and crying of ancient, of a soul that's separated from the divine, from God. God knows since when. And it's separated for a purpose, to fall, and in the fall to do what was really needed, and then to go back home. But it forgot to go back home. And when I reached that crying, longing for that higher companion, you know, the higher one that really knows, as if my soul knew there is one. And I was even, when watching myself, said, am I going crazy? What happened to you, Faisal? You're becoming religious or God or all of those things? But I said, I go with it. And when I go with it, I feel divine presence. An entity, a higher soul, a Mahastar, much higher, much evolved, much more mature than my soul. A soul that walked the walk way before me, entered all the domains that I am struggling with, and transmuted them into higher aspect of what they are. You know, very ancient one, very ancient soul. Much. When I felt that presence, I tell you, I bowed to every guru, every beloved, and bowing to the level I can. And when I was in the presence of that one, even my sphenoid bones rotated. Every bit in me bowed. It wasn't me doing anything. Every bone in me, every aspect in me bowed to the beloved one. The one who walked the walk ahead of me, the one who knows it, the one who charted the path, the one who, you know, all, and first, yeah, this is the one I want to follow, you know. And liberation is mine. I gained it again. I put on the robe of liberation, you know. My soul felt, now I know the way of salvation, and how a mature soul, how does the soul look at this kingdom and what's it about and who are we? So a whole stream opened up, a whole lineage opened up, the Diamond Logos opened up. You know, the whole teaching about the Enneagram and the fall of the points and where we come from, and the different, a whole stream, a whole lineage opened up that was impaired when I was in the school, because we were absolutists. I was absolutist, Hamid was absolutist, and that is limiting. That's, getting lost, spinning, that in the quicksand of the absolute. You can generate millions of ideas and concepts and belief systems, but you don't know how to walk the walk. You need to have to be a camel to cross the desert. Otherwise, so that felt personal for me. It felt like, wow, this is the path of salvation. How to walk the walk. And I felt loved by that presence, a love that was the healing of most narcissistic wound I ever had. That no one could have given me that love. My father couldn't. My mother couldn't. They loved me the way they could. I loved me the way I could after doing healing and therapy and all of those things. But this felt divine love. It felt like that's how that divine one love. You are my begotten son. That kind of feeling. I wanted that feeling. And once I got it, before I wanted it just for me. I want to be the one, And once I got it, it felt like, oh, that's what everybody wants. Everybody longs, because it's the most beautiful, precious feeling there is. And that's the salvation. Then for that love, you walk the walk. That for that love, you feel, I mean, the closest we get to it is for our children. Sometimes we feel that love, Wake up in 2 a.m, I wake up. 4 a.m, I wake up. Whatever it takes, certain love. So the path of salvation leads to the evolution of the soul to a higher and higher potentiality. Navigation in a kingdom that's really precious, but this kingdom is also protected. Whoever lives by the sword shall die by the sword. There are laws and how to bow to those laws. Not to say I'm liberated and I can't do anything, that's not the way. So then it balances liberation and salvation, liberation and salvation. And it answered for me many questions that I don't teach anymore in the groups. I did before, but now only those who can go to that experience, fine. Diamond Logos is more about liberation and healing and transformation and maturation, but the divine dimension, the divine love, the pinnacle of salvation, it's not in my hand to teach. That's by invitation. Only by invitation. There is no way anybody can work on themselves and reach it. No way. That's why I left Rwan, because we thought we could reach it. Because we could reach the absolute you could reach it by work. You could reach it. You work on your issues, these are the jail, you break the jail and you're liberated. Salvation, no. Salvation is by the invitation of the owner of the palace in that infinite dimension. If the owner of that golden city invite you, you can go. If not,
but invites you when you're in a state of despair and praying for some sort of mercy or some sort of answer or some sort of connection.
I don't know. I honestly
isn't that what you were doing?
For me, it was like, it was more like going beyond this and that.
Okay.
Not like because I was suffering and I needed salvation, or I was, ecstatic and I wanted to be cured from ecstasy. It was a longing of something that I wasn't even aware of. It was a longing for a love, for something beyond reward and punishment. Oh, this reminds me of the story. Maybe that experience. There's a beautiful woman in Arabia, a Sufi woman. Her name is Rabi'a. Rabi'a, and she lived about, I think, maybe 1,000 years ago or 1,200 years ago. And she became a beautiful, illuminated woman and taught and had poetry and really beautiful. And she was really like a Zen, And in one of the stories that her friend, one of the Sufi, came to visit her and said to Rabbi, why don't you and me fly in the air like the birds and communicate and talk? She said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how to fly, but why don't you and me go and dive in the ocean, in the sea, and talk under the ocean? He said, oh, I didn't know this trick. He said, you idiot, you know, birds fly, fish swim, you and I are here, you know. So she was like Zen, like, come on, get off spirituality that has to do all of those gymnastics, you know. In one of her poems, she says, God or Divine One, if I seek you because I am afraid you will throw me into hell, throw me into hell. If I seek you because I want paradise, deprive me from paradise. But if I seek you because I love you, accept me, take me. This is where the soul reaches the ultimate pinnacle of the frequency, that this is about a kingdom of love and evolution, you know, love for a human.
Happen in the mind.
Yeah, it's the heart. It's really in the heart, you know. So the soul matures, settles in the throne of the heart. The throne room is the chest, the heart, and inside it the sacred heart, and that's the throne. And the soul can settle back on its throne, you know. And then the mind and all of this is just, it's mandala. It plays in the field of infinity and creativity. You know?
It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your personal journey.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. This I try to keep for myself, but I feel like I just toss it and maybe it inspires somebody or validate somebody, you know.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
until our next round.
This anguish, sometimes because of the anguish, and I see some people born in it and live it. Now that I can see and I can feel, because this has opened for me, and I feel so touched and so moved. They're so humble, they're so ordinary, they are not wearing crowns and these things, and I mean, they really, I feel they are the guardians of the earth. Their soul has been blessed by the divine love and touch, you know. And some of them I've been seeing, those who are now turning the desert into greening the desert and making it a forest. And you look at those souls as if they're receiving divine guidance, how to save the water and how to find the seed and how to receive the desert and make it a forest. That's divine intervention.
And they may not have found no self nature or realized nature. They could just be in just a rush of.
Yeah, but self-nature is simple. It's simple. They may be in it. They seem to be very serene, very peaceful. I was looking at a couple, Chinese couple, you know, old man or old woman. They planted maybe 100,000 trees or 1 million trees, you know, and they are now so old they barely can carry the water. They seem to be serene. So that's the absolute, and they are in Buddha nature, but their soul is full. I've seen so many enlightened, they're in that, you know, field, their soul is so regressed, so immature. I feel sorry for them because the temptation is great, you know, because now you have the force with you and they don't have the maturity how to utilize it, you know, and how to surrender to it and navigate it. This grace, the path of salvation, has to do with the grace. And the Bible says it beautifully. Says salvation comes through grace, not through work, lest man boast. I felt in 86, in Radwan, I felt we were boasting. We know it, and this is the issue, and we can get it, and they're still boasting. And I felt like grace is not there, you know. Salvation comes through grace, not through work. Not that you do something and you can reach it. Grace. And grace means unmerited favor. It's given, not because you've done something. It's just like your child, you love them, not because they've done something, because they are the best in the West, in the North, in the East anyway. You know? It's that kind of love, that kind of divine grace, you know, that I won't trade it for anything.
Mm.
Yeah? Really, for anything.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
the weaving of the two adds to maturity and all of those things. I hope it helps people who listen to differentiate, you know, to leave what is for this and what is for that. Then it makes the journey more, navigation is very better,
Yeah.
much better.